How long have you been in education?
Been in education for a long time. I did college at Calvin and got a major in both biology and did the secondary education training program. So it's been part of my background ever since then. Graduate school was mostly research work, postdoc, but then faculty position at Michigan State in 1987. And so we could count it from there if you'd like.
Sure. Well, I know you worked at the Van Andel Institute for a while. How much time there influenced how you're approaching this position?
The opportunity at Van Andel Institute was tremendous. They wanted to start a graduate school from scratch, a PhD program in cell and molecular biology. And I was fortunate to be chosen as the founding dean for that, which means we could bring into that situation ideas we had about how to train PhD scientists, not only to do the research at the bench, but to become research leaders and thereafter. So the chance to create a graduate school from scratch means we had to draw on principles of education, not just keep the wheels rolling, but we had to invent everything from scratch. How that affects my role here, I think it's an understanding of the needs and purposes of a particular student body and finding best practices to address those needs as effectively as one can. Respecting the needs of the faculty as well as of the students and of the administration, and understanding how decisions get made in academic settings and what are the appropriate settings, the appropriate groups for making certain kinds of decisions. The curriculum should be owned by the faculty, for instance. That's not something that presidents or boards should do. There are other decisions that belong to the president, other decisions that belong to the board. And so in that context of the Van Andel Institute, we had to work through all of those processes.
In your opinion, what do you think is the central tenet of education from your point of view?
The education is for the students, right? It's to give students the knowledge and the skills and the experiences that equip them for whatever direction they are headed in. That principle came clear to me when I was at Michigan State University. I taught in the medical school. Right? So I was in a biochemistry department, which is mostly a research department. Teaching in the medical school, and the medical students don't really want to understand their research. They want to know what it is they need to know to be good doctors. And faculty who were successful in teaching in the medical school understood what the students need from that experience. And for the medical students, it's different than for the PhD students. Even if they were studying the same subject, the same content area, there were different reasons for learning that. So here at the community college, that same principle applies. What do these students need in this setting for the paths that they are on? And how do we best provide that for them?
Sure. So you've been working here for a couple of weeks now. How do you feel about how your first couple of weeks have gone?
The community's been very welcoming, very warm, very encouraging, very supportive. The staff have been great about helping me figure out how to do the things that operate a certain way in this setting, whether it's learning how to run my desk or my computer or learning my way around campus. Staff have been very helpful, and the leadership have been very warm, inviting, eager to work together, and that's a great environment to step into.
Sure. How were you approached to get this job?
There were a couple of folks who know the institution well, and when it became clear that an interim president would be needed, they, in a quiet conversation, raised the notion with me. It took a period of discernment for me and for the board to decide whether this was the right fit, and eventually we both came to the decision that it would be.
How has the interim nature of this position affected how you approach it versus if it were a permanent job?
It changes some of the focus of my work. A permanent president in a place like GRCC has responsibilities to lead strategic planning, to bring in some vision for where the university, the college will go over some period of time. As an interim role, my time here will be limited. And so I need to respect the work that's been done and the work that will be done. I feel a responsibility to set the stage for the next president so that they walk in with an opportunity to succeed and quickly and effectively. But my job here is not to set a grand new vision. My job is not to see how we can reorganize the structure of the place. My job here really is to stabilize and to affirm the people who are working here now, to keep our eyes on the mission, which is to give a great education to our students, to continue to promote the college to the public that supports us, and then to prepare the path for the next president.
What do you think your biggest goals are while you're here?
To remind the college and its people that this is really a remarkable institution that has a great past, that does really good work for its students, and is a great place to work. There are a lot of challenges in higher education right now, and sometimes it's easy to lose sight of that. So part of my job is just to remind people of the value of the mission and the quality of the institution that GRCC is, and to remind each other of that, to share good stories of success that students or faculty or staff have had, and then to keep our eye on where we need to go, laying a good foundation for the next president.
What do you think the biggest challenges will be?
There are lots of winds blowing outside the institution that affect it at the federal and the state levels. Those create some challenges for the institution, financial and enrollment challenges. It creates challenges for students who may have some uncertainties about which direction their education should go and whether they have the resources to attend. Creates some challenges for faculty and staff about what kinds of things we can say or what kinds of programs can be developed. So we have to continue to keep our eyes on what we know is part of our mission and continue to do that well in spite of or in the context of all of those external forces at play.
Just in the past couple of days, there's been a lot of conversation about international students at colleges and their visas being revoked or in question. What are your thoughts on GRCC as it relates to that situation?
I've seen those reports in the news. There will be a lot that happens in that discussion on the national scale, whether those revocations and restrictions are appropriate, are legal, are enforceable. Those matters for international students affect other institutions a lot more than they do Grand Rapids Community College. The number of international students coming here is really pretty small. I don't have that number in my head right now, but I saw it earlier today. So in that regard, it doesn't have as significant effect as some other issues that are swirling around us right now. And yet there's still some impression that gets left about who is welcome in higher education and who is not. And I think Grand Rapids Community College wants to continue to be seen as and continue to be a place that is open for any student who has an interest in the kinds of programs we offer.
Sure. On that note, your predecessor, Dr. Freiberger, just before she departed, was asked if she would add GRCC's name to a call for a constructive engagement, which is a letter that stood in opposition to government overreach in higher education. And she declined to sign it. How much do you know about that? And if they reach out to you asking you to add GRCC's name to that, do you think you will?
That's not a decision that we've made at this point. It's challenging to make those kinds of decisions as an interim. I need to understand both the context in which those letters arise, and I need to understand, I need to be careful not to make commitments that the future president needs to uphold. So we'll look at things like that, but I won't make a decision right now.
Going back a little bit to student voices and kind of like the last DEI meeting where we got to hear some more of those student voices that was held with Lisa Freiberger. There was a lot of sense of frustration from students and staff about just the uncertainties of what's going on, whether they still have programs that are supporting them or whether even staff would still have jobs in the future. Do you want to say anything to reassure students and staff?
I've been impressed in the 2 weeks that I've been here with the work that's been done by the executive leadership team in responding to what we receive as executive orders or dear colleague letters or FAQs surrounding those dear colleague letters. We know that there's a lot going on in the courts and in the legislatures as well as in the executive branch that moves those forwards or take those back, and we'll continue to advocate mostly through our associations, the Michigan Community College Association and others. That's where we'll do the most of the advocacy for the needs of our students. But I've been impressed by the work of the executive leadership team in addressing how those affect the campus and its operations. There are 20 some different areas that they've explored for where we might need to make some adjustments or where we need to review and be confident that we don't need to make some adjustments. There are some areas where adjustments might be made, might have to be made to comply with executive orders or dear colleague letters. I think the strongest theme that I've heard in the work of the executive leadership team is making sure that the services to students aren't diminished by that.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, the approach has been how can we enhance or expand the services we provide to students, maybe taking lessons from programs that have been more focused on particular demographic groups and expanding those best practices to meet the needs of all of our students. So we don't have the details yet of how those programs will take shape or the finances that will underwrite them, but there's a lot of effort being put into reshaping those in ways that continue to serve the students broadly and well, and to sustain the positions for the faculty members and staff. Some of those changes are being made already to websites or programs. I think it's a bit premature for us to lay out a timeline right now, but certainly we're working hard through the summer to get those done. There will be communications to the campus community that convey the changes that we are making. Some of them will be so subtle that it won't be so important to announce those. Others will be more substantive. And yes, there will be communications to the college community that lays those out once we've got a solid plan put in place.
What do you think is the most important thing that students should know about you and how you're leading this school?
I think students should know that I have a clear understanding that schools exist for students. That the quality of the student experience, both in the classroom, laboratory, kitchen, shop floor, wherever it might be, the quality of that experience should be as strong, as excellent as we can make it. Their experience outside of the classroom or formal learning setting also should be good. The support services should also be strong. So we're really focused on the quality of the student experience.
When you're not working here, what do you do in your free time? How do you spend your life when you're not behind a desk?
Well, for almost 2 years, I was in a retirement situation. Had a long list of things, still have a long list of things that I will enjoy doing in retirement. I like being at Habitat for Humanity work sites. So much of my work has been cerebral, intellectual. Working on a job site with the Habitat for Humanity volunteers, we see something physical that got built that day. Take a satisfaction in seeing that done, and then go home and let the site supervisor worry about what's going to happen the next day. So Habitat for Humanity, I love to read. I read broadly biographies, mysteries, fiction, historical or history, read broadly. I like music. I play percussion instruments, tambourine, timpani, everything in between. Have more opportunities to do that in retirement. I enjoy golfing. I have a leave of absence from my golf course job to take this position for this year. And I'll look forward to getting back to that a year from now or so.
What about GRCC made it a choice that you wanted to take to leave that retirement phase and come back?
I've long had a respect for the place of community colleges in the fabric of higher education. I've long had an appreciation for GRCC specifically in the fabric of higher education here in West Michigan. I think there are a number of things that we did at Van Andel Institute that illustrate my interest, my commitment to collaboration among higher ed institutions here in West Michigan. And so a lot of respect for the institution and its place here. And then seeing a need and seeing that at this time, some of the skills and experiences that I have might be appropriate in this setting. That kind of led to the decision to take this on.
Sure. This is a question I always like to ask. Is there something that you like to talk about that you don't get asked about very often?
Nobody asks me about my virology experience, my scientific experience. So I spent 30 years as a molecular biologist and a virologist studying how genes get turned on and turned off. Nobody asks me about viruses anymore.
Do you have a mantra, a phrase, a quote that you try to keep in mind as you're doing that?
Maybe the context to place that in would be a sense of stewardship. Stewardship, as I understand it, is a responsibility to use well and wisely the gifts or the resources made available. And so through my experiences in my life, I've been given an abundant array of resources, experiences, opportunities. And so I feel a responsibility to use those in good ways, not just for my own benefit, but for the benefit of the community around me. So that, I think, is really the fundamental principle behind my accepting the opportunity to serve here. Maybe a phrase that someone introduced to me a few months ago. Do the next right thing was the phrase that they used in a very different context. But that resonated with me as I was contemplating this position, this opportunity. And this felt like the next right thing to do.